Hello everybody, it is 8 o'clock, it's Thursday, it's time for Content and Cocktails. Man, it has been a long week. I take my hat off to all you people who are out there homeschooling and doing all the things that you need to do to keep the wheels turning during this this trying time. So, what is all this about? Why are you seeing me here on a Thursday evening again? Well, this is Content and Cocktails. My name is Tom Stanhope and I help business owners use video to grow their businesses. If you're a solo entrepreneur, a speaker, a course creator, and you want to be using video, then I've got some resources and some expertise that you might like to be able to access. So if you are watching this on my personal stream, and you're not a member of Grow Your Business with Video, our free group, come on over and join there. There's lots of hints, tips and tricks to use video to grow your business. And really, it's just mostly about getting together on a Thursday and having a bit of a think about and a chat about how video can work for you. This week, I'm going to be talking all about your tech setup. So we've been doing the sort of 31 days of action, and this week I've been getting you to think a little bit about the sort of the technical setup that you're using. What is it that you're using? What tools are you using to grow your business with video? And that's really what we're about here this week. So obviously it's Content and Cocktails. That's the content side of it. What's the cocktail side of things tonight? Well, I've had a real hankering for a dirty martini today, and so I'm going to be mixing one of those. First of all, let's see who's on. Mike Boss, Evening Cocktails, Evening Mike Boss, long-time viewer, long-time piss taker as well. Mike is here to both show us what he's got. Mike has been here right from the get-go, and actually I've seen Mike go from somebody who was really not Mike is a very accomplished photographer, by the way, but that was a sort of a sideline to what he does, but he's also grown massively as a video maker and has got has even got a sideline business going. And so I will say to you, Mike, do not be shy in sharing your links for your video, your social media asset creation stuff, because it's really great. Tammy, hello. How you doing? It's really good to have you here. Lovely to see you. Abigail Horn, look at this. The royalty is out. This is wonderful. Mike says, piss taker, harsh. Is it though, Mike? Is it? So, the dirty martini. It's mostly just gin with a bit of vermouth and a little bit of olive brine, which for some people would sound like the worst drink ever. Hello, Ashley. How are you doing? So this is a really exciting week for me because I have started in something really very really that is a massive deal for me. So this year I've joined a mastermind that's being run by Lisa Johnson and Abigail Horn, and you will probably know both of them. And really, I will sort of be unfolding what's going on as the year progresses. But I've got a big full-on year ahead of me. Least of all, one of the things that I'm going to be doing is write a book. To be specific, it's going to be about growing your business with video. It's not just a random book. It'll be about something, that I know about. So let's see how that goes. Let's see if I retain my sanity. So the cocktail I'm doing. So I'm using a Tanqueray gin. We'll put a nice big measure of that in. In fact, we'll put a measure and a half, I think, because it's been that sort of day. It's been a measure and a half kind of homeschooling day. I think what I'm realising is that I'm much better at teaching adults than I am at teaching kids. And I don't know if anybody else is kind of getting that that sort of that vibe going on at the moment. I kind of I think it's important that I acknowledge my shortcomings, and that is, I'm improving, strongly improving, but I'm not. I realise that I really don't know as much maths as I thought I did. Quickly learning and reminding myself how to calculate the area of a parallelogram. That was fun. So a little bit of olive brine in there, just a splash. I like it quite briny. And then I'm going to give it a good stir. Yeah, you see, Roberta says, I thought you were doing mocktails in January. Yeah, well, that was before lockdown, Roberta. So, it didn't last very long. I thought I was doing mocktails in January. But the short answer to that is, I'm not. So, so there. So some of you may well know that I have got a paid membership as well. Before we get on to the sort of the discussion about the tech setup, I want to talk a little bit about my paid membership. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is another group that I have called Video Skills Made Easy, and that is all about, and this is going to come as a huge shock, this is going to come as no surprise, it is all about growing your business with video. But one of the things that people talk about is they often say, I haven't got enough time to be doing video, or I have a kind of a set of, I'd like to know about editing, but I find it pretty overwhelming, all that kind of stuff. And so I set up Video Skills Made Easy as a way to give people the skills they need to use video in their business in a way that is simple and actionable and gets you creating. Because at the end of the day, you are not running video businesses, you are running your own businesses, and video has to be a tool for growth, not something that gets in the way. So it's a way to deal with the mindset stuff, to get over the fact that you may be worried about being in front of the camera, you may feel daunting, you may be thinking, what will people think of me? So there's all the mindset stuff to deal with. There's the tech stuff we deal with. There's also, that could be the editing, the camera setup, your live setup, all that sort of stuff. Then we've got the strategic stuff. So we've been doing a lot about planning that content, putting a content plan, an actionable content plan into place. And then, of course, we have the final piece of the puzzle, the story. What stories are you going to be telling your audience over a period of time? And are you consistent about that storytelling? So there's all of that. And really, for me, it's been great. I love it. I love running that group, and I would love more people to come and join us. It's early days yet, and we still have a fantastic offer on at the moment of 25 quid a month. So if you haven't joined, come over and join us. But there we go. That's the pitch. So there we go. We've got a dirty martini. Cheers. That is an excellent drink. So I will just put up, so here we go. If you're interested in it, there we go, there's a little banner around the bottom. But I'll leave running for a few minutes. So here we are. We're at the start of the year. You're thinking, I would like to get going with video. You've maybe joined me on some of the tasks I've been doing for this month. You've maybe worked through a few of them, and you've got yourself to a point where you're thinking about video content creation. One of the big stumbling blocks that people have is they worry about their tech setup. They worry that their camera setup, their home studio setup is going to be unreliable. There's all sorts of things that people kind of fret about, and getting that sort of tech stuff done and out of the way is really is a really important step, because it takes something that creates anxiety off your plate and means you can focus on communicating with your ideal audience, your ideal customers, in a way that feels effortless, that doesn't feel like it's going to be a headache, that actually drives key business goals forward, as opposed to just being another thing that you feel like you should be doing that isn't necessarily delivering results. And video can very often fall into that sort of, that kind of state. You know, it's sort of it doesn't often get the sort of not attention. I think people can dabble around the edges with it because it can feel like such a big thing to deal with for business, and they'll look at other people's businesses who are using video well, and they'll go, how on earth do I get there? How do I get to that point where I can be creating content? And they'll have a go, and maybe, particularly with the tech setup in mind, maybe things don't go quite so well and they'll back off. But spending a bit of time understanding your technical setup, your camera, your sound, all these things that go to make up the way you kind of go live or create pre-recorded content. Once that's set up, you can actually really kind of you can really start to take a big part of the stress off your plate, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. So when I think about my technical setup, ultimately this is about going live effectively or creating pre-recorded content relatively effortlessly. So let's talk about the live setup first. And what I'll do is I'll map out my personal live setup, and then I'll break it down and sort of kind of give you a sense of how that might translate for you. So my live setup is pretty straightforward, really. I have got a camera, a small light, and a microphone. And that is it. This is the place where I work. So this is my desk. This is my study. So I haven't got anywhere special that I do this in sort of before times. You know, when we had a separate office, we would have a separate setup. But actually, this year, 2020, 2021, the more time I've spent going live, the more I've realised actually if you can have a setup which allows you to go live and be sort of able to pre-record content in one place, it makes the whole thing a whole lot easier. By the way, if you've got any questions as we go along this evening, do feel free to ask. You know, just chime in. This is a Q&A session as much as it is a kind of a sort of a me blethering session. So my camera, I'll talk about my camera first of all. So I'm using a Sony A7S, and that is a video camera that's in a sort of a stills camera format. It's a really great camera. It's one I use professionally, but I've sort of retired it, and it now does full-time work as a webcam. And the way you get that, you know, if you have a DSLR, if you have a stills camera that has an HDMI port out that you can stick, you know, if you can stick an HDMI cable into your camera, you can then plug it into a bit of kit that I've got. So I've got a bit of kit called the Elgato Camlink, and that's an external dongle. It's a capture card, and it allows me to take a video feed from this camera and and it gets converted into a usable, streamable video image. And this is important for me, and I think it should be, you should give it a serious consideration if you've got a camera that it would work for, because the quality of image is amazing. So this is a great camera, but what's more important is I can use really lovely lenses on it. So the lens on that camera, I'm using a late 1960s Pentax manual lens. So it's a Super Takumar 35mm lens, and I got that off eBay. I think it was kind of I think I paid about 35 quid for that lens. It's a really, really lovely lens. It's interesting because those late 60s, in the late 60s, Pentax was producing really, really high quality lenses because they wanted to compete on quality rather than price globally. So they were both affordable and incredibly good quality. And for some reason, they are just beautiful for video. So they're really forgiving. They make everybody look lovely. So I use that. Ashley says, could you post links or names of the equipment you use later? Actually, I can do better than that. I've actually got a freebie, a download, which has got links to all of the equipment that I use and recommend, with different levels of kind of cost. So I've got some sort of entry level kit, I've got some middle tier stuff, and I've got some higher end suggestions. So I will share the link to that later. But the beauty of this no, so Roberta, that's a really so no. As long as you can take a video, as long as you can take a, I mean most modern SLR cameras will have a video function of some description, but you can if you can put an HDMI cable in, you can take that feed out. You'll have to check on the Elgato Camlink descriptions that because I seem to remember there are some cameras that are not compatible, but they're few and far between. But the oh, hello Scott. Scott says hello. I'm not getting notifications, which I clearly need. Oh, there's something going on today with I've had no notifications all day, which has been a real pain. So there is something going on with Facebook, I think, today. A number of people have kind of suggested that there's stuff going on. I have an older one that's just a still camera. Well, I'd be. If you have you may not have an HDMI port out then. That's worth checking. So you don't have to spend thousands. So I will share that link to the freebie that I've got. But the a little bit of due diligence is worthwhile with whatever camera you've got, just to double check. But the Camlink is brilliant because it opens up devices that are not necessarily designed to be webcams. And so I have a this is effectively a very fancy webcam, and I can put lots of different lenses on it, and it kind of makes everything look lovely. It's also got a very good microphone on, so I can use a secondary microphone. My microphone, I'll just switch it over so it doesn't. Okay, so the mic is just on a boom overhead, so it's not active now because I knew I'd be sort of fiddling with it. But this is a microphone, and Scott, you make a very good point. I will come to that in a second. So my microphone is just on a boom that goes overhead and sort of comes there, and I've got a little LED light panel, dimmable light panel, just mounted by the camera. It's at a slightly higher angle to try and avoid too much glare. Obviously I get some glare from my screens on my glasses, but if I take them off I get all squinty and I look really tired. So my vanity doesn't allow it really. So and also I can't see very well without them anymore. So so the camera, the lens on the camera is really important actually. So you want something that's wide enough to kind of to show a bit of expanse and kind of show your room, but also tight enough that it feels a bit more intimate and feels like a conversation. So a 30, in this case, for me, a 35mm lens works very well. Oh yeah, hang on, that's a very good point. I am because I'm not on my normal microphone. I'm going to switch off my profile. Nope. Oh my god, it's on quiet. It's quite warm in this room, so my my computer is kind of working overtime to I've just checked my my cooling system configurator, and it is supposedly working on quiet. Let's see if I can get that to quiet down. It'll shut down in a minute. But Scott, I sometimes do drive a tractor. Being a rural farmer's lad at heart, I do occasionally drive a tractor. So Scott makes a really good point here. An iPhone isn't. He says it isn't terrible. I'd go further than that. I'd say an iPhone or a mobile phone is a really great option. I would say that will really help you with your audio, with your video, and indeed if you just plug in a little microphone, a little tie clip mic with your audio. The reality is you have a whole bunch of tools at your disposal that you probably don't know about. So when it comes to the sort of the video side of things, we've got our we've got the cameras that we carry around with us all the time, and with a little bit of tweaking they can become really powerful tools. So I would say if you have a camera and you're using your camera phone, get yourself a little stand, get yourself a clamp and put your camera on top of that, because that will give you a level of stability, and you can plug your microphone in and put a tie clip mic on or whatever, and you will have a very kind of effective setup doing that. But also lighting, if you haven't got lighting, you can use just domestic task lighting, so a lamp. But with a lamp, if you are using domestic lighting, try and soften that light, perhaps by putting a muslin over the front of it, just to soften that light up so that it's not kind of casting really harsh shadows. I mean, this light has got sort of diffusers on. If I take that off, this is probably a bad idea. So this is just a little light panel I'm using. So you can see it's a relatively straightforward bit of kit. But if I take that off, this diffuser, you get a very harsh light. Mount it back on there. Oh God, this isn't going to work now, is it? So you can see that's a slightly harsher light. So soften that up. But you don't. I'm using all this fancy pants kit because that's my job. I've got a lot of this kit lying around, but the reality is a lot of us don't need that. Don't let the kit or worrying about the kit get in the way of creating content. You're really looking to optimize for ease of use, and if you can get to a point where you know where stuff goes, if you've got things marked out on the floor, so you know where you put your tripod, you know where you put your phone, how you clamp it, how you set the microphone up, where you put the light, so that you can be set up to be creating video content very easily. That is the kind of the gold standard for me. You want to be optimizing for ease of content creation. Now, if you're able to leave a setup kind of here all the time, that makes things that makes things way easier. But if you need to take things up and down as you go along, then definitely kind of do consider sort of getting your setup right so that it's kind of very easy to put up and down. Let me just take that banner off, it's getting a bit annoying now. So yeah, there we go. I mean, that's really the setup that I use. I've got a very straightforward setup really. I don't like to go too overboard with it. For me, the thing that I need to do is to make it look good. Now, oh yeah, so Scott, I wanted to say, so I know, yeah, I'm live with Scott at 11:30 on Tuesday, I believe. I think, is that the 19th? Or Tuesday next week, not the 19th. we will be on his show, and we will be talking visions of the future and science fiction, which is part of one side of me is that I'm quite a big nerd and really enjoy good quality sci-fi. Don't worry, Scott, we won't be talking Star Wars, I promise, because Star Wars isn't science fiction, just to be clear. Yeah. So yeah, tune in if you want to see two people chatting. So, Roberta, you're going to love this. Tune in. You've got to tune in. It's going to be great. It's going to be the best. It's going to be huge. So yeah, so do tune in. That's just an aside. So obviously, in terms of the technical setup, the camera, the microphone, the light, getting those right, getting to understand those, and making sure you are optimizing for ease is really important. Make sure your setup works. Now, I was having this conversation in our mastermind group with a few people, and one of the things that I love to do, and this is something that has saved my bacon time and time again, if you are worried about going live or creating video content, make sure you are testing your setup. And there's a really great way to test your live setup in a very low risk, low impact way, in a way that feels safe and that isn't going to be embarrassing. Set up a Facebook group and make sure that you are the only member of it. So I have a group called what's it called? It's called Tom's Live Test Group. And I am the only member of that group, and I will go live into that group to test my setup. So in that group, there are hours and hours and hours of lives of me just saying 1, 2, testing, or kind of getting comfortable in front of the camera, or just checking out my camera setup. And nobody will ever see that because it is set to private. I am the only member. So if you are wanting to test your tech setup out, set up a group, make it private, and make yourself the only member. And then you can test your technical setup in a way that is low risk, that feels kind of safe, that is private, and you can make all the mistakes that you need to behind closed doors. And so when you do go live to a wider audience, you've got it all right. You've got it all set up. So that's something that I love to do, and I find that really, really useful. I'm going to have an olive. Bear with me. Whilst I eat my olive, have a think about any questions you'd like to ask about that, if there's anything. So, I like a dirty martini because it kind of feels like a meal. You know, you've got a snack, you've got a drink, it's the whole works. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. Another part of the tech setup is the post-production. What do you do once you've gone live? What do you do once you've recorded your pre-record stuff? And obviously editing is part of that. And for a lot of people, editing is kind of a big stumbling block. Now, there's two ways you do this. There's two ways you deal with this. If you have the time, but don't necessarily have the money, and a lot of business owners would, kind of, certainly when they're starting out or getting things off the ground, would like to be saving money, then doing the editing yourself makes loads of sense. Later in your business, if you've got the money but not the time, then farming that work out to somebody makes sense as well. But with Mike, that is an excellent question. I'll come to that in a moment. So yeah, I know we've talked about this a number of times, haven't we? Actually, I there are a number of solutions to that. That I think are really well worth considering. So yeah, I'll come to your question in a second, because it is an excellent question. But yeah, so the post-production setup: find an editing platform that you like, that works for you, that you can stick with. What I see a lot of people do is spending quite a lot of money on editing software, when there are really great free options out there, very powerful free options, editing software out there, and then they play around with it and chop and change, and they move between different platforms and get quite sort of confused, and the sort of movement between different platforms can cause all sorts of confusion, because you start to learn one, then you go to a different one, and there's subtle differences in the way they function. I mean, they're all broadly the same, they all roughly do the same thing, but the way they do it sometimes changes. So I would say, if you choose an editing software package, stick with it unless it's truly awful. I mean, there are some out there that are bobbins, frankly. Some of the best ones. So I frequently recommend DaVinci Resolve, because it is incredibly powerful, and if you've got a PC or a Mac that can handle it, it is a really great piece of software, and it is free, and it is professional. It looks terrifying, but actually, really, you can get incredibly, you can get good with it quickly. It doesn't actually. It's not as scary as it looks. And also, there's software like OpenShot, which is a piece of open source editing software, which is great. There's if you're looking on mobile devices, there's VN Media, which is excellent. InShot, which is also very good. KineMaster, different platforms, but choose one. Master it, stick with it. Obviously, if you're a Mac user, you've got Final Cut, you've got iMovie, you've got different options there. But yeah, with the post-production stuff, choose something and stick with it, because in sticking with it, your skills will improve. If you can invest some time in something like Resolve, that will pay dividends, because actually, as a piece of software, it will grow very quickly. With a lot of software packages, you will come to a point with the more entry-level stuff that builds itself as simple. You will kind of find that you butt up against the limits of that software really quickly, and you will be frustrated because you won't necessarily be able to go beyond. You won't be able to achieve the things you look at. But if you are investing time in something like Resolve, then you will have a piece of software that can expand with your ambitions as you get more creatively ambitious. And that should be the goal. Getting creatively ambitious will set your content apart. Become a better creator, create better content, deliver more value to your audience. It will set you apart, because most people just treat video as almost like a moving book. They stand in front of a camera, they say some words, they switch it off. Video is an essentially, it's a visual storytelling medium, and you should be using it as such. It should be a complete experience for the viewer. Heather, hello Heather, how are you doing? Cheers. It's great to have you here. So welcome to Content and Cocktails. So that's my thoughts on editing. Choose a platform, work at it, and kind of, and when I say work at it, it really doesn't require a huge amount of work. Small amounts of time invested in understanding how these things work will pay big dividends. So that's the post-production side of things. So I think really, in terms of the tech setup, that's what you want to be thinking about. There is another stage, but I think we'll deal with that separately, because the sort of the delivery side of things is kind of is a really important part of the process, and understanding the methods by which you get your video in front of the people you want to talk to are hugely important. Heather says, I'm well, cheers to you too. No cocktails for me, it's only noon here. Well, you could have a mimosa, a Bloody Mary, surely. I'm not encouraging daytime drinking, okay. Yeah. So if you've got any questions, we'll do a bit of Q&A. Hit me with your questions. So Mike, how about Mike Boss from Dorset says, how about an easy to achieve, interesting backdrop rather than a blank wall? So Mike, when you say backdrop, do you mean a something that you can sort of take up and put down, something that is kind of almost like a kind of a banner that could be put up behind you, or are you thinking something a bit more permanent, like a sort of because getting people away from filming against the white, the sort of the unforgiving white wall of doom is something I think a really good thing to do, because it doesn't do anybody any favours. It just makes everybody look like they're in a lineup, and having a bit of depth behind you, a bit of interest, it just adds value, and it adds a bit of class. You know, I think it looks good. I like a bit of interest. I mean, you know, you sort of get, I don't know, you get a sense of personality. You're able to craft something. Now I'm going to have a look at Scott MacArthur, long-time viewer. Yeah, so this is almost like a basic setup with maybe a couple of objects to get away from the wall. That's absolutely it, Mike. I mean, it is. We are talking about creating a little bit of interest, and I will share. I'll just go on to Scott's feed, and I'll find a still of it if I can. Maybe not that one. There we go. I'll share my screen. Bear with me a second. Okay, share screen. Oh my god. No, remove. It's flickering horribly. Oh, Heather, that's a great question and has a really, really easy fix. I'll get to you in a second. I'll try that again because it didn't like that at all. There we go. That's it. So here we are. So Scott, I'll take my. So Scott has got Scott does regular video content, like live content, and he's got in his space he's got this wall. And actually, that could have just been a flat wall, couldn't it? But actually, with some shelving and some sort of nicely curated artifacts on the wall, I think it's starting to get really interesting. And I love something like that. I think that kind of is a nice, easy fix. I think that is great. Something like that works an absolute treat. It doesn't have to be complex, but it just provides a bit of interest. It elevates it. It's not complicated. It's not a difficult fix, but it is something that just elevates the look of the live. So let's go back to just me. So Heather says, I'm new to video and I'm doing Facebook Lives makeup tutorial in my private group. I struggle with the ring light reflection in my glasses. Any tips? Well, there's actually a very simple fix to this. So, and I will find the image that I'm going to share, because actually this is Now, I'm going to share my screen again, and you will be amazed by the quality of my drawing. So, look at this. So here we are. Here we have somebody standing in front of a camera. Imagine they're wearing glasses. That's the camera. That's the light. You want to increase the angle of the light so that it is hitting your glasses. So if you bring the light up higher, so the angle of attack of the light on your glasses doesn't reflect straight back into the camera. So it's hitting and bouncing down. The light is hitting and bouncing down, not just kind of bounces, because most people will put their light sort of close to the camera. So that angle is just, it's very acute. It just bounces in and hits, you know. Open that angle up a bit more and the light will hit the lenses and kind of go down, as opposed to hitting and going straight. So if I move my head up a bit, you can start to see the light reflecting into the camera. But if I position my light above my head, so it's kind of about there. So I'm still being lit by it, but it's not interfering with my glasses. Now, what I can't do anything about in this situation is the light from my screens, but I figure that's okay. It's not too bad. But yeah. So for you, Heather, raise the angle of the light source high or higher, and just you'll be able to play around with it. You'll get to a point where you'll know that it's working. So take your ring light, lift it up so that it's not sort of bouncing off your glasses and straight down your camera lens. Does that make sense? So Roberta says, I don't have room for depth. Have a desk in the corner room. Could put a picture up. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's about set dressing. Create a space that reflects you and your personality and that feels congruent with your message and good for your audience. You don't need a huge expansive set. I mean, this room is absolutely tiny, really. It's just got, I've got bookcases all the way around the damn thing. The place is an absolute, at the moment, it's just like we've been having lockdown 3 clear out, going through the cupboards, and everything that's due to go to a charity shop or the tip is being stored at the side of this room. And so I'm kind of at that stage where I'm kind of angling the camera very carefully, frankly. So just think about your space, how you can dress it and light it. Use of light is really important. So for example, behind here, you can see I've just shoved a light behind the bureau, and it just chucks a little bit of light, and it just separates out. So I'll turn it off. If I turn that off, it looks quite flat and boring, I think, now. But when you put that back in, it just lifts it a little bit. It's not, there's no particular finesse to it, but it breaks up the monotony of the background a little bit more. And that's what you're looking to do. You're looking to create something that is of interest to your audience. So have a think about that. Little things like that can make a big difference. And all that is, it's just a domestic light. There's nothing special about that. It's just a lamp stuck behind that cabinet. Mike Boss, you are far too silly and far too hard. That if you have a face that only your mother could love, could you make a video entirely in the dark? Look, Mike, I'm going to be honest with you. Look at this face. It's a face for radio, frankly, and the reality is that I'm the only one who cares about that. Look. If they can make a film about the Elephant Man, I could get in front of the camera, frankly. So, you could make a video entirely in the dark, but you know what that would be? That would be a Crime Watch video, and it would be, you'd either be a 1980s IRA member on the news, which is not a good look, or you'd be on Crime Watch, which also I don't think is a good look. So if you want to make a video in the dark, I think it might send the wrong image. You might convey the wrong message to your audience. But I've got to say, so Mike has spent months working with kind of doing actually something really, really well, which is very hard. He's very good at making funny videos, and has done a really great job with a character, and it's bloody brilliant because it's genuinely funny, and it's great. I love it because it shows Mike to be a real human being, somebody with a sense of humour, and completely sets himself apart from the other people in his industry, which I think, so Mike is in the world of finance, and it helps businesses access finance. He's a money man, and I think you've said in the past that it, as an industry, it has a reputation for being a little on the dry side, doesn't it? Being the person who has a personality in that business, of which you have an excellent one, and he's a very funny guy and knows his stuff inside out. And if you are looking for finance, talk to Mike, by the way. His know-how and expertise is he sort of sings out, and so not everybody can do the comedy side of stuff, but if you can, it's well worth a punt, because you might hit on something really, really great, as Mike has done. So I think we've covered quite a lot of ground tonight, haven't we? One way or another. I was sort of expecting to have completely flagged. I'm totally exhausted today, so I might wind this up, because this is definitely a one cocktail video day today, because as Mike and other long-time viewers know, sometimes I will stray into a second, and also occasionally into a third cocktail, which is always that puts us firmly in the danger zone. But tonight it's a strict one cocktail kind of live. The harrowing yes, Mike says it can get a tad messy. There is some very early content of cocktails where I horribly misjudged and got quite squiffy on a live, and just kept going. It was great. I mean, the model of professionalism, obviously, but yeah, moderation in all things. So yeah, I think we're going to wind things up here. But thank you so much for being here with me this evening, and I hope you found it useful. It's always fun, and if you are interested at all in kind of advancing your know-how about video in a slightly more structured way, then Video Skills Made Easy is our paid membership, and it is still only 25 quid a month for the first 50 people who join up. And at the moment, we've got there are bonus. I didn't say this earlier. There are bonuses at the moment worth over $390 or £280. That's amazing. It's crazy. Heather says, messy is where the fun starts. Well, yes, I agree, but possibly not on lives that will live forever. So there we go. Guys, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in to Content and Cocktails this evening. I will see you again next week, and I will see you in the group tomorrow for the next task. Take care, have fun, and I will see you on the other side, as they say.